Welcome back to another episode of the Legion Vodcast. I am Danny Burke, Director of Events at Legion AVS, and I've got Steve Turturici, Director of Creative Content at Legion Films. And this is, as I said, the Legion Vodcast, where we talk about the events and film industry and how to navigate it and be successful in it. Today, we are talking about general sessions, kind of continuing on our topics of innovating in the event space and conferences. So Steve, you shoot a lot of events.
I sure do.
On camera.
Yep.
I produce a lot of events. So wanted to kind of talk about what you see often, what you've seen that's cool, ways to innovate the space and ways. So I have a thing where like, I really want to move away from the rectangle stage, 2 flanking screens, and some uplights on some drape. So that's like a personal thing. Like I think this, like that's kind of like a standard in-house AV event package, right? So it's like it's just that it's been the same for probably 30 years, maybe more.
Yeah.
And so like, what can we do that's different and cool? And what have you seen?
Yeah, I was gonna say you're asking what I've seen. Mostly that. That's been the problem. Is I mean, shoot. Let's think back. Beginning of our careers. I'm not even gonna say how long that's been. It's been a while. What did the events look like then? The same as they look like now.
Yeah, I think one of my first events I ever did, it was in a convention center, and I think I set up 1,200 feet of drape, 16 foot tall, maybe 18 foot tall. And we did, I think it was like 3 general sessions, but it was literally stage in the center, 2 flanking screens, drape, uplights, stage wash. And so like, yeah, and that was a long time ago, 2009, maybe.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I did events, this year, 2024, that were 2 screens and a rectangle stage and some drape. So
yeah, and I think like, I mean, let's talk about, for some audience members, they might think that's great, that's fine, that's what I get. But what is wrong with that? And I have my ideas from the creative standpoint. I'd love to hear your ideas from a technical standpoint.
I mean, in reality, there's nothing wrong with it, except that if you're going to spend that money, because like, I mean, if you're going to do a 3-day conference, you're probably going to be spending $100,000, right, on that setup. Microphones, stage wash, projectors or LED or whatever, drape state, like it's going to cost you $100,000. If you're going to spend $100,000, spend it on something cooler. Like you can spend the same amount of money and do something more innovative and cool and interesting. Yeah. So that's my biggest thing is like, it doesn't have to be expensive, but it can be way more interesting.
Yeah. And for me, just from like the introspective creative standpoint, you're setting the stage for your event. You're setting the stage for your whole audience experience. And if they're walking into, house lights up, nice bright room, the same wall that they saw at the last 3 conferences they went to, and it's just there, then they're just going to be just there. Right. They're not going to be as engaged. Like you're teeing them off with like, here's the theme of the conference. We want you to be the same as last time.
Yeah. I honestly think about that. I see like there could be like frustration from you and like films teams where you make an awesome hype video for this conference, and then it gets played on your 2 16:9 screens. And
and what do you see?
It's like high energy, and it's the same.
The same person standing on the same blank wall, or like,
step and repeat backdrop.
Yeah, step and repeat backdrop.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we set that up? And it's like, because I mean, in our last episode, we were talking about, creating this air of excitement and like really hiding the education within your event. And like, I think that all, like they say about going out to a fancy dinner, you eat with your eyes first. So it's like, if you're walking in and it's like that's gonna kind of inform the rest of your experience. So
yeah. So let's get into the meat of it. How do you move away from that and keep your budget reasonable.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
or not, there are also, I have done events where they spend $1 million and it's still essentially 2 screens and a stage. Maybe it's 3 screens and a stage, but it's still that, right? So to me, first thing is lighting.
Mhm.
You get some. They don't even have to be moving lights. You can do static lights, but do gobos, do breakups. Hit your walls, hit your entire event space, not
Mhm.
just your stage. Basically, right? Like
Absolutely.
just do everything you can to turn off your house lights.
Mhm.
That's a big one. So bring in enough lighting that, and again, it doesn't have to be big fancy movers that you're spending $500 a light. It can be static Licos that are $75 a light,
Mhm.
or wash lights or whatever, and just paint the room with color, with light, the entire room. Make it so they come in and it becomes an experience, and it's not just I'm walking into a ballroom to go sit and watch this conference.
Yeah. And yeah, jumping off of that, something that I've seen with some teams lately that I've gotten to work with is using that lighting to their advantage, tying into their programming. So changing the theme of the
Mm-hmm.
room between sessions, like whether this is the award session or the the CEO's keynote, or even just changing that between general session, like guest speakers, like, is this the finance talk? Oh, the finance talk, that should be blue. And then, like, here's our fun guest speaker who's like, we've had our fun drummer who are motivational speakers, like, let's do a little more upbeat yellow. And like really changing up the room between the programming is a great way to give your audience a mental reset too. And like, on the video side, I can tell the big important moments apart, and it's not just the same drape background, which, like, drape's great. It's a great canvas to paint on with the lights and use it like that.
Right.
Because we often are put in a position that there's a blank canvas at all times, and it's just an opportunity left on the table.
Yeah. 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 We did a show last year where there were sessions throughout the day, and in the morning session, all of our lighting was like sunrise and sunrise colors.
Mhm.
And then we had a midday session that was like brighter. And then we had an evening session that was like purples and sunsets. And like, it was a really cool idea. And it really, like, it just made it, it made it feel like you're coming into a different space every time, which is, I think that's a big, like, transformative, right? That's what we want to do, is transformative.
Yeah. And I think jump off of what you said of like painting your whole space and like adding texture where you can is always great, and like making it feel like you've expanded your conference space from just that one wall that you're taking up with your AV, and expanding it to the whole room so that your audience is being immersed not just physically but then mentally into what's happening. And whether that's going with just lighting and like maybe some breakups of texture around, but also you can do projection mapping, or what we've done on some events recently of using lasers to do additional
Yeah.
branding or gobos, and just really spreading that presence from one wall to 4 walls within a space.
Right. Taking it from a 2-dimensional thing to a 3-dimensional thing. Yeah. Yeah. People should use more lasers.
Lasers are they're still cool.
Still cool. Everyone likes lasers. Yeah. So lighting, lasers, basically, yeah, lighting elements, right? All of that is pretty affordable options. Another one I would say is move away from drape. 100 feet of drape at 20 feet tall is gonna run you like $15,000. Depending on what it is, or like 150, between $10,000 and $20,000, depending on what you're doing. And like, that's not nothing. So what if you spent some of that money on, hard flats, or, doing, big pillowcase banners or things like that? You can do that stuff for around the same price, and then it's a completely different look and feel. You can bring dimension to it. You can do textures, and you can do a wall going upstage, downstage, and then going across, or you can put doorways in. You can do stuff that's not just like, we just want to hide backstage, because that's essentially what drape is for, hiding backstage. So like, why don't we do stuff that's more interesting? we need to have a divide, right?
Mhm.
We need to have a backstage area for our speakers and for our technology, but like, don't just do drape. Do
Yeah.
something different. And then on that same vein, you can do drape, but maybe do something different around your main stage. So do a custom backdrop that's made out of, again, real materials. Maybe it's not a print, maybe it's again, 3-dimensional, like wood and standout letters or things like that, that just, again, make it more interesting than a drape with some uplights.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd love to talk a little bit more about some of the specifics of things that we've done recently that was a twist on, making the stage more exciting, like the Denny's franchisee event. Like, I mean, just as a observer on that, I this was all your team's creative genius, but building a 2-scale replica of a Denny's on the stage as the backdrop that the CEO can walk through the front doors to come onto the stage is pretty cool. Like, you don't see that every day. And you know what that isn't? Drape.
It's not drape.
It's
And
not a flat wall.
that budget, we came in at budget. It was not in the initial designs from the planners. And we said, hey, what if we built a Denny's in the ballroom? And then our main entrance is a set of glass double doors, like you're walking into an actual Denny's. And completely doable and completely feasible inside of a budget. And we also did custom printed on that show. There was no drape. We did printed backdrops that hung like drape, but they were branded printed backdrops. And so it was, again, it was fabric, but it was more interesting than just a black wall of drape. So
was that a texture that you guys had for that?
So again, we kind of expanded on the Denny's, so we had the physical structure that was the Denny's that you would walk out of, and then we did a 5-foot tall brick print that went across the front, and then we had it wasn't like a stucco, but it was a a wall texture that was printed, so it was like, it looked like the front of a Denny's. So it maybe even been glass, a glass print, but either way, it was there was dimensionality to it, and then it also it looked like a Denny's. So it was leaning into something rather than just doing your standard.
And in essence, like, as far as the show format went, it was still a stage and a couple screens, and the content still got out there, but it was what I'm hearing is a repurposing of funds to just push through a creative avenue to refresh and re-innovate and grab people's attention, because guarantee you none of those attendees had seen that before.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it was a rectangle stage. It was 2 screens, but it was just kind of flipping it on its head and rethinking it. And like, we still gave presentations, and we still, did all these things. I would say the thing you want to look out for in this realm of like trying to spice it up is like, you can't get too spicy. You can't distract your attendees, right? You can't, I see this happen with when people do like, you'll do a 20-foot tall and 90-foot wide LED wall. Awesome. Super cool. Very expensive.
Very distracting.
But can be very distracting, right? So if you have like crazy motion graphics going through their talk or something, like you're taking away from the attendees' ability to focus on what's going on.
Yeah.
So like, you need to be strategic with these things. And like, I think that Denny's one was a great example of spending money wisely and then not being too distracting. Like, it was a static Denny's, and then like, we would do some light movements and things like for transitions, but in general, it was a static thing, which worked well.
Yeah. I think another event that y'all tackled, the Santa Barbara Indie event, was a creative use of LED tiles. What was it? 200 and something degrees?
270 degrees of LED. Yeah.
Yeah. But not put together all just in a blinding fashion, in a way that, again, wrapped the space in pillars and columns that, with creative graphic design, again, around the same budget of doing the drape, created an immersive space that really sucked people in.
Yeah. So that was a 3-day conference in Santa Barbara. And I think our all-in budget was like $300,000. So like not nothing, but also not crazy extravagant. And yeah, we did a 55-foot curved LED wall on stage, and then the curve continued out into the audience and wrapped the whole room. And then that we also did an entire box truss surround of the room with drape to hide all of the walls. It was all flat black drape. And then we lit it. So again, you walk in and it's a completely unique space. It doesn't even look like a ballroom anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, yeah, having a good graphics designer, but again, the graphic stuff happened for transition. It happened for intros.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they're on stage, their content is their content. We're not distracting them with big movements.
Yeah.
And that was a very intimate thing. So like we were seating like 300. And so our stage was small. Like our stage was only 2 feet tall. It was not like a huge thing, but it was just, again, being able to completely transform that space. And then again, same thing with the LED and the lighting. Depending on the session they came into, it could be totally different, which was great.
Yeah, and this is all really cool ways to still like stay kind of within that linear format, but expand out. I'm curious to get your opinion of fully non-linear formats, like in the round and putting your main stage in between your audience. What are your thoughts there? And I can give you my thoughts.
I think it's really hard to do effectively. I think it can absolutely be done. I think that for what most, like, that type of stuff is super cool. Like Ed Sheeran just did a concert tour where he was fully in the round. That's awesome for that type of thing. Perfect, right? Like hard to execute on and make, especially for music, to make that sound good and for everybody. Really impressive that they did it. For what we do in conferences and stuff, I think that you walk that line of being too spicy. Of you don't want to be distracting. So if you can do that and still maintain the quality of the content and like the retention of people can actually focus on what's going on, you can do it. I just saw one. It's kind of funny. It was pre-pandemic. It was 2017 or 2018, but they built basically a news broadcast studio in a ballroom. So they had 3 sets and they were like little circle stages, and it was really cool. And it was like, one was like your interview style, so it was kind of like a late night show. So we had your desk and your couch, and your next one was like a weatherman setup. So like that's where you're going to go present your content. And then the third one was like a morning show style. So it's like a panel discussion. And so you could be at these different stages at different times, and they were broadcasting out to a bunch of people. So it like felt like a TV show, but then their audience, rather than just like not think about your audience, they put them up on risers and made them feel like a in studio audience cool. For a for a broadcast. So that's a totally innovative, cool thing to do. Obviously, they're pushing out to thousands of people nationwide or globally, so like it doesn't work for everything. But like, if you can think outside the box, essentially, right? Like if you can think of a way to do it and maintain your retention and your quality, like that's the challenge. And I commend you if you can.
Yeah, no, I hear everything you're saying on that front, and I think also something that I'm getting out of what you're saying is there's a time and place for that.
There's a time and place.
And I think one of those proper times and places was the Ecolab 100th anniversary event that we did, where our main stage was very linear, but our DJ and special event, like award stage, was in the round in the middle of the, I was going to say auditorium, football stadium that it was in. And that was a time where it's okay to be too spicy because it's all excitement.
Well, that was also, that was a party,
yeah.
Right? So that's not like there was a very brief, like, I don't even know if there was a slide deck for that, honestly, but like that's a party. That's exactly right. And so, and I will say that's a good point of like, that was an entire thing for that, but like, can you transform your space? Can you do something? So like, hey, earlier today we had, presentations done here and things done here. Now
Mhm.
it's changing to be the party room. We're going to do an award show. We're going to do a concert in here. So like, what can we do to change it? And again, transform your space when the attendees
Space
aren't there.
slipping, yeah.
I think that's totally possible
Yeah.
without breaking your budget or like, having to like do a crazy flip. You
Mhm.
just have to think about it.
Yeah, and that makes me kind of take this what if stance on like some of the projects that we had done way back when, where it's just like, okay, yeah, we are gonna have an after party and we're just gonna put the DJ on the stage. And like sometimes it works out, sometimes you have the audience that, is self-starters that's like, yeah, now we're gonna party. It's a dance party, let's go. But some of them might need that little extra bit of visual intrigue to kind of draw them in. And it's like, what if we had flipped the room and done an extra little stage in the middle? Or what if we had done a separate DJ booth or just a small extra thrust on the stage for that session of the show? And what would that have translated into for the audience? And I mean, answering my own questions, I think it would have added some extra excitement and some extra atmosphere and energy to that part of the show.
Well, and also, I mean, again, depending on your show and what you're trying to accomplish, if you can get people excited about walking in that room and be like, oh my gosh, it's totally different. Or like they're going to want to post about it. They're going to go home and talk about it. Like that's you want people to be talking about your event after it's happened. Right. So like, and if you're just completely linear, that's probably not going to happen unless your content's really good, which, there is a lot of really good content and like speakers and things, but like if you can do things that are memorable, right? That's what it's about. It's memorable. So they're going to go and tell people about how great it was and why this other person should attend, or, because every event, regardless of like if it's open to public or it's an association, like you have to get people to go. If I'm an association for event professionals, like just because you're an event professional doesn't mean you're going to go, right? Like, so it has to be enticing. And so how can you make it enticing?
Yeah. I think you actually touched on another really great point of photo worthiness of an event, and knowing what your content and your audience is and what that dictates for how you should be approaching your presentation. So like, some of these political events that we do, they do go a little flashier because at the end of the day, what they say is important, but how they look and how they're presenting is also equally as important. Like I can think back to Gavin Newsom's inauguration. That was not a linear stage. That was a circle stage on a large catwalk over a fountain with an audience essentially almost in the round for a gorgeous photo op that was going to be on the front page of the newspaper. Yep. So everyone knew, like, we know where he stands policy-wise. He had a great speech, kind of reinvigorating his base there. But what was also king there was, how did it look?
How did it look? Yeah. That was definitely king. That was 100%. All that mattered was shots. That's a really good point. I don't know what to say about that.
I mean, I think it really boils down to just like, really, if you're in the event producer position, if you are in that driver's seat for your brand, your association, your agency, you need to have that conversation with yourself of who are your attendees, what's important to you, what is your content, and then what is appropriate to that event. And not just that event as a whole, but each portion of your event can have a different approach based on what you're trying to spotlight the most.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's more and more, I think that's probably talking about what we've done in the past and what we're doing now is like one of the biggest changes is, I mean, I think that event planners and agencies and associations that put on events, like they know their demographics. They've always known their demographics, but there's just so much more information on those demographics now about what they like, what they don't like, what they're willing to tolerate, I mean, there's just so much data in the world now. So like really, leveraging that, it doesn't make, if your audience is 65-year-old men, you're probably not gonna bring a DJ in, right? Like it's just what it is. But if your audience is, millennials or Gen Z, you're going to need to like entertain them and engage them because like they're not going to sit there for 6 hours through a boring general session. They're not. So Yeah, just knowing your audience is incredibly important.
Yeah, and I think like we are very lucky as a company to be put in a position to be part of that creative conversation with a lot of our clients more than we used to be. I think earlier on, it was a lot of, this is what we need. Can you guys do that? And now it's more of a, hey, let's think about this
This is what we're trying
creatively.
to accomplish.
This is what we're trying to
Can you help us
accomplish.
accomplish it?
Yeah.
Right? That's a different conversation,
Mm-hmm.
which is definitely that's something I would also say as like to event planners and producers, like ask your vendors, what would you do? How would you do this? This is what we're trying to accomplish. Because I mean, you might have an idea, but maybe they have something that's just like completely, it happens to me, whereas like I need input that is outside of my worldview. And it's, so even if you don't use it, just getting another opinion, like, it never hurts. Right. And for the most part, I mean, speaking for us, but also probably most production companies, they would love to be involved in those discussions. Cause also, we are always paying attention to new trends and new things and new technology and ways we can implement it. So like, if we can help, we want to help.
And if there's new toys that we already have that we just haven't gotten to play with, there's a good chance that we would want to bring it out and put it into its best use and practice on your event. So if it's appropriate and it works and it's accomplishing the goals that we've all set out to accomplish, which is the best attendee experience, regardless of which age or demographic they might be. If it accomplishes that goal, then let's do it as a team.
Yeah. Lasers. We just did
more lasers.
We just did a show where we had a section of wall that was blank, and we said, wow, what if we put some lasers up there and did your logo in a laser? And it worked out so well. It looked so great. And nobody at the agency had thought like, oh, lasers is an option. Because why would you?
Well, and I would say, jumping off of all of this, like selfishly and unselfishly, being heading up a video department that's showcasing all these events, if your event looks stunning, first off, it makes my job easy. That's the selfish part. Unselfishly, now you have really beautiful, engaging marketing content,
marketing materials
to get more people in next time.
Yeah.
If people are seeing your highlight video and they're like, nah, I don't know, it doesn't look like anyone there's having fun, why are they going to come to not have fun? So if we're able to showcase just visually exciting things where it's the lighting, it's the scenic, it's the people enjoying it, that sells for you better. That gets more people in those seats.
Yeah. And that probably is a good segue into what we should do as another episode, which we haven't discussed, but we should do an episode on marketing materials, creating content. If you're doing an event, you need to be capturing that content. I think most people know that, but also leveraging that content and using it appropriately. We recently did a show where there's one team like capturing like iMag and stuff, and then we were doing B-roll and things, and like there was a pretty large disconnect on quality. So like that's something I would say, like if you can have one team working, at least having like responsibility, like you don't have to be all one vendor, but like there should be one person who has responsibility to ensure things are the same, and then you can really create a lot of, one event, if you have even 1 day event or 2-day event, like you can get enough content out of that for marketing for an entire year for that event for the next year, right? Like no problem at all. So that's just something that people should be aware of. We should probably do a deep dive on.
Have me back and I'll do it.
Yes. I don't really have anything else for this. I think we could go deeper on like innovative stage layouts, but I think, lighting, scenic, out of the box video stuff. So, you don't have to do a 20 by 100 foot LED wall. Like there are ways you can do, 3:1 aspect ratio projection, and like LED is really cool, but it does get really expensive really quickly. But you can do a lot of that with projection mapping. Like there's a lot of really affordable things out there that are out of the box and can be done and should be done. So move away from just a rectangle stage and two screens. You can do it, and it for probably the same price or nearly the same price. That's all I got.
You can do it. We believe in you.
So that's episode, I don't even know what number. Thanks for listening. And if you have any feedback or if you've done cool events, let us know about them. Put some photos, tell us about them. Great things you've seen, terrible things you've seen. I want to start this show off with like a section where we talk about what you all are talking about. So let's get some of that.
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all.